It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmic Voice. Cosmic Voice, music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Voice. This is Season 5, Episode 5. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
Hello.
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, my good brother, how are you?
I am doing wonderful, my friends. How are you this morning?
I am fantastic. Regardless, I am fantastic.
No matter what anybody says.
No matter what anybody says, what I think or feel, I am always fantastic.
That's right.
One of my early mentors, that's all he'd say. No matter what people ask you, you are fantastic. Things are going great.
That's right.
And they are, because we got our Spotify numbers. This podcast is in the top 15% of all podcasts shared worldwide.
I know, that's amazing.
That is amazing, because it doesn't make sense to me. But listen, Spotify can't be lying, at least not to me. So I'll take what they give and go from there. I'll wear it with a badge of honor. Thank you, sir, and I salute you.
Yes.
So
yes,
yeah, top 15%.
everybody.
So all the people that are listening and sharing, thank you so much. Keep doing that. So keep doing that. I'll take 15%. I would have taken 25%. Top 50%.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Listen, man, 80% is awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The fact that we're linked in with other people, other podcasts being shared worldwide, I'm excited about that.
It's crazy, man. It really is. Like, when you sent me that, like, that's really cool. Like, I was very flattered and honored, and it's really cool. I hope that we're doing some kind of service to people.
I agree with you. I hope it's justified in the sense that people feel that they're getting something out of it. I just don't want a podcast where we're kind of just talking about Christmas and Hallmark and being fantastic. Though we do the first 9 minutes of every show about that.
That could be why people listen. I don't care why people listen. I mean, they don't even have to take our advice. If they listen just to see what we have to say, and, maybe they tune in to hear our the first 9 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But whatever. They're going to talk about business. Off.
The business isn't interesting. It's all the other stuff that we talk about.
Hey, listen, man. If people are listening and sharing, then God bless. That's awesome. I love it.
It could be the law of numbers, with these algorithms, too. I mean, we are in Season 5, which is a blessing in itself.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, a lot of people started things in the pandemic to just kind of fill the time.
Yeah.
I mean, this show was
sure.
started during the pandemic. It was an idea prior to the pandemic that was kind of circulating around, but the pandemic gave the opportunity to really get this thing off the ground in this format. Both you and I, when we first started talking about it, said, we'll do it for a little bit till the world goes back. We'll see. Never thinking that, and we talked about this at the beginning of Season 5 and Season 4 and Season 3, that we would be doing it. We're in our third year and 5 seasons in. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Now, again, we do our show a little differently than other podcasts. Some of them do it every day. Some of them do it 3 times a week. They have these large numbers. But instead of just kind of like filling in time, I think it's more important that we have shows of substance. Kind of like how they do it on TV, right? You run so many shows, and that season sometimes has a theme or it has a feeling, or there's something that connects it all together. Then you need a little bit of time to recharge, to regroup, to see where things are going, give the writer staff an opportunity to maybe come up with some new topics and things, see how the world is going, and then come back and then give ourselves the opportunity to reflect on it. The other thing that I've learned is that the primary core of the show is our experience, our time, what we've done, right? And if we don't allow ourselves to do that, what do we have to talk about? We're just kind of rehashing a lot of the old stuff.
Yeah.
And really, a lot of experience is that. But at the same time, you and I are both still in the trench. So we're giving ourselves the opportunity to experience some of these things that are happening now, especially as the business keeps changing. I mean, this post-COVID business is just recently, and I know this show will air long after we've recorded it, but there's several venues that I've played that are right now in this week that we're recording in the process of shutting down. Everybody was closed during COVID. Everybody tried to reopen. Some people opened up later and all. Everybody's given it a good year and a half of trying to get back on track, and some people have not. And it's a shame. I mean, some venues overseas that I played, I just got the word they're closed. They're done. They tried. Some venues right here on the East Coast, you may have seen some posts about it as well, closing. And that's and people think that, oh, well, the pandemic's over. It's like we're back to normal. No, that year, that 8 months, whatever it was, has affected everything that will reverberate for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. It really is a shame.
It is a shame. I mean, listen, we were supposed to go to Germany in November, and you know, that got postponed because you know, overseas is still really, really suffering with tours and shows and anything that's not local, right? Like they're suffering over there. So all their shows or festivals are bands from close to a country that they can get there. You know, bands flying overseas, and like, you know, obviously unless you're like a huge name band, but you know, where we are independent artist wise, like trying to do shows overseas where it was pretty normal, you know, before COVID, it's not happening right now. And you know, like I said, our show got postponed, and because a lot of the bands couldn't make it, and they're still dealing with inflation and COVID restrictions, and you know, it's bad. It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate.
Yeah. So, you know, you might not see changes, and I know this sounds kind of crazy, but you may not see changes until the next decade.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are still trying to figure out what's going on. Then you have a new crop coming up and saying, well, this is the world we live in. It's kind of like, you know, for all of us now, we're living in a post 9/11 world, right? But I remember the pre 9/11 world like it was yesterday. I mean, there are still things that you'll go back to and go, well, you can't do that anymore. That doesn't exist, or it's different now. And, you know, again, we've talked about this before. I remember the days you may not have been flying that day, but you could go with the person. You could go all the way to the gate with them.
Yeah.
And make sure they got on the plane, and then you could walk back out. And it was a simple security pass.
Yeah.
In and out. That was it. If the lights didn't go off, you were okay. And they did that for a lot of years. Now, you can't do any of that. Man, you can't even, you look at someone sideways, they got you roped down, strapped up, and strip searched in a back room.
It's true, man. It's true. It's definitely a different world, and it's a shame. It's very sad. And, you know, you were talking about, you know, us as a podcast and you know, how we do things different. We're like the Sopranos podcast. Like we do some shows and we have some time off and do some shows. Well, the Sopranos sometimes had a long, you know, I mean, some of these new shows, it's like 2 years later they get back to it. I don't want to do that, but, you know, I mean, it gives you some time to recharge and, you know, again, because we are working independent artists. Yeah.
So it's though this show is very important to me and I want to give what I can to it, like we talked about on the show, I need to be able to fulfill my obligations and passions of the other projects as well. Otherwise, like I said, you're just kind of hitting record and you're just filling up time and then putting it out there. And then you get lost in that. I'd rather have a small package that just delivers and people go, hey, that was really good. Leave them wanting a little bit more. Oh, man, I wish it was a little longer. That's better than saying, man, I wish they cut that like an hour ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like I just to use Kiss as an example. I mean, you have people today, like you either love them or hate them. Or now, actually, you say you either love them or you really hate them. There's kind of no in between with Kiss.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't.
Yeah, and it's weird. They're one of those bands, and people go, "Oh, they should have hung it up 25 years ago. Oh, they should have hung it up this," or you know, it's like, well, okay, I don't feel that way, but at the same time, I don't want to walk around doing the show and go, man, you know what? These guys should maybe hang it up. And you know, here's the thing: 5 seasons in. I mean, is that a lot? Yeah, I guess if we had a juggernaut network behind us, that's a lot. And our awareness would be much higher. But again, we're in that 15%. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
And like
yeah.
I've said at the beginning of this season, the end of last season, I have watched our numbers start to go up. I mean, again, we're not mainstream, and we're doing a topic that you don't see or hear a lot of. You have people that kind of incorporate it into their show or their rap a little bit, but I don't think that they focus primarily on it. And I also think that, if you had like a show like with, say, Nikki Sixx doing it and Tommy Lee, their experiences would be way different than the common indie in the trench artist. There wouldn't be a connection.
Yeah,
Where,
yeah.
And again, this is not to put down what we've done or accomplished. We're not that status.
Right.
I can say that proudly. It's okay. I'm not the dirt. But I think my experiences, I think your experiences, I think all of our indie independent artists' experiences are just as important, because that's really the core of everything. I mean, remember, all these major acts, that's a small percent compared to right, the 100,000 uploads that are happening daily.
Yep. Listen, man, as long as we're in the conversation, I'm okay. I don't need to be the top. As long as I'm in the conversation, I'm happy as hell, man. Like, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 50% is killer.
Yeah, good or bad. Listen, maybe it's the 15% of people that don't like us that are sharing us. Thank you.
They can listen to these jokers.
Yeah, look into these jokers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, listen, whatever works. We've said this before. I mean, I don't listen to Howard Stern anymore, but years ago, his biggest numbers came from the people that didn't like him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
They just tuned in to hear what he had to say because they needed content for themselves.
Yep.
Well, that's okay. I've seen some of, and I'm not saying, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I'm just kind of saying in passing. I have seen some of our topics show up on other podcasts, on other shows. I've even seen it on internet radio shows. Some of the topics that we've talked about show up later. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. That's interesting, And I'm not saying that people don't have the same thoughts, because that's silliness, right? To say that, oh, I had it exclusively. Well, maybe. Again, if I had, you had, the show had, if we had a major network backing us and we released something, well, that doesn't mean that we created it. It's just that we brought it to the light sooner than everybody else because we had this machine behind us. And like, modern man has this tendency to think that antiquity man, civilization, we're all idiots. Well, I don't think that's the case. I think they were much more intelligent, one, than us, and two, that we give them credit for, because they were doing things, and we don't even know that for sure. So, anyway, not sure how that relates to anything. Thank you for the 15%. Keep it up. If you love us, if you hate us, doesn't matter to us. We're used to that. We're an indie in the trench band. We're used to that.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
All right. Well, there's 14 minutes, and we didn't talk much Christmas or holiday or Hallmark or whatever. But,
not yet.
Not yet. Tune into some of our other episodes. And that episode is coming this season.
That's right. That's right.
It's Russ the Boss.
Take it down.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
All right, so let's get to the topic for this show. It's changing band members to fire or not to fire. Wow. And I'm telling you, we've all been there. We've all been there. Changing band, unfortunately, changing band members to fire or not to fire. Chris, what do you think about that, bud?
Well, I guess you could look at it a couple different ways. First of all, I mean, sometimes firing a band member is for the best or it's for the worst. You know what I mean? Changing band members is always tough, whether somebody quits or you have to get rid of somebody, right? Because you lose that. I'm going to take it from, obviously, if that person is a complete asshat, then losing that person or getting rid of that person is a big relief, right? Like, if the person is just causing trouble or their ego or they're not easy to work with, I've been down that road also. There's one situation where the guy was an asshat and he gave us an ultimatum, and it was so easy to go, well, you're not getting that ultimatum, so whatever, like, there's the door. And then once he left, it was where it got fired, whatever, however you want to look at it. It was a huge relief, right? Because it just was, we got rid of all that drama, we got rid of all that tension, all that negativity that person brought. there's a lot of gray areas in this, because it could be, is that person a bad person, or is that person going through something, whatever the case may be. So to go back what I had said, so that was easy, right? Because he wasn't a very nice individual to be around and to work with. If the person is super nice and you enjoy that person's company and it's just not working out, whether it be musically or you have two different visions, that's tough. That's a hard thing. One, because you have to go back from scratch. You have to find someone that clicks, which that's always an issue. Someone that has the same vision as you guys do, or you ladies, whatever the case may be. And then you have to restart. You have to learn. You have to teach people these songs. So there's a lot of time when you lose somebody, whether it be firing or replace, if that person leaves, or hopefully it's not, hopefully it's nothing medical that person has to leave. Hopefully it's just personality, or just, you guys just don't click, or everybody sees it differently on the music end. But it's never easy. I have a lot of thoughts in firing someone. Firing is such a horrible word. Like I don't know what else to put it.
Well, let go.
Let go, relieving them of their position. So there's again, if the person is horrible and hard to work with and brings a lot of negativity and brings everybody down, then it's really easy to go, listen, like we can't move further with you anymore. But when they're nice and a super person, a super good person, and but there's issues there, that's really the hardest part.
One of the things that I feel is the hardest for a band. Listen, most bands, rejection is something that's normal. We get rejected from an audience, we get rejected from a venue, maybe another band rejects us, a radio station, whatever. That's kind of common. Like, oh, no, we're not interested in you right now. Record companies kind of reject you all the time. You're going to have your ebbs and flows with a band. But I think one of the worst things that happens to a band is you lose your flow. Yeah. And when a member leaves or is fired, let go, dismissed, whatever you want to call it, the whole system breaks down. Especially if you have something in the works. And then all of a sudden, you have to stop, regroup, and refigure. That's the worst. In this day and age, it seems to get harder and harder to find replacement members.
Yeah.
And then to find replacement members that are up for doing the level of whatever it is that you're doing, right?
Yes. Yep.
Firing someone is very difficult. We've struggled with it for years. Now, have we let people go? Yeah. But usually a long time coming.
Yes.
You're trying to give this person as much time as you possibly can. Okay, listen, they got to learn the ropes. Okay, there's a lot, especially if they're coming into a band that's already established. And we've had this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When we changed drummers, there was a lot that Mad T had to deal with. And in a short amount of time. Literally, let the drummer go on a Thursday. Mad T was in the mix on Friday. We were playing the next week.
Yeah.
It's like out of the gate type of thing. Literally, from there to a national show, and then we did a New England tour. And listen, there's that transition. There's a lot riding on that, and it's a tough thing. And when you make that decision, say like you're the group that's making that decision, or you're that individual that's making that decision, you have to be. It's kind of like you made your bed, now you got to sleep in it type of thing.
Yeah,
you got to be prepared. Unless you have it already, this is coming. You have it in the works, and there's a lot of that too. Sometimes the let go, the leaving. Now, I know the show's title was about firing or not firing, but sometimes people give themselves enough rope that they hang themselves. And they get to a point where that narcissistic thing is like, well, I'm done. I'm leaving. It's you, it's not me.
Right.
But you'd also see that those individuals kind of repeat that pattern everywhere they go. Or if you've worked with that person several times over the course of several years, that pattern repeats itself.
Yeah.
So, in essence, you're just as fault as that person because you did it again. And I've been there. I've been there as well. But to fire someone, it's really hard because as a band, it stops the flow. And you're like, oh, my God, I got to start all over again.
Yes.
Like you had mentioned earlier, they got to learn the songs. They got to learn the culture. They got to get the flow. And that means everything you're doing externally, if you're already in the mix, has to be postponed or canceled.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a blow to the band, especially if you have a lot going.
Yeah.
And when we made that switch, we're almost 7 years ago, for the drummer, we had so much in the mix already. We literally had the rest of the year booked. And we were like, how are we going to do this? I'm not a guy that likes to cancel things that you said. Even if you've got problems, I made a commitment. I said I was going to be there. I expect myself to be there and do whatever I can. I mean, over the years, we've done shows without a bass player. We've done shows without a singer. You pretty much can't do a show. I guess you could, but for our type of music and what we're doing, you can't really do the show without the drummer.
It's funny, side note, I literally just saw a band. A friend of mine posted that the band's drummer, and I honestly don't know the band's name, but the band's drummer canceled the show. Like, the band was setting up on stage when the drummer couldn't show.
Oh, wow.
The band played without him. Singer, bass player, guitar player, and they just played their set without him.
Well, I'll tell you, more power to that's fantastic. Well, I mean, if you're in that mix, I would say, I guess you got no choice. The lucky thing for us is, like with Mad T, he was kind of our roadie. He had actually filled in prior to. I mean, he was already in bands. He was playing his bands. We played with his band multiple times, did some small tour setups with him. But he had filled in with us a few times over the years, like last minute. So we were very appreciative that he knew the basic set, didn't know every song. We've brought in new members over the years, and we've had to curtail the set drastically. Like, say, listen, you have a couple weeks to learn something. We're going to cut down the set to 8 songs. Yeah. We're going to throw in a couple instrumentals to cover the thing. We'll do this intro, that intro, whatever. I'm willing to do that. Any band should be willing to do that to keep the flow going. And that lessens some of the pressure. But like you were saying, if these members, whether they're long-term members or they're new members, if they're not willing to put the time in, right, they should say, listen, I'm very appreciative you're giving me this opportunity. Take advantage of that. Yeah. Yes, it is less now, and it's going to be more later. But if you do your work now, later is going to be a lot easier. And a lot of people, we've talked about this multiple times, not only in the show, but privately, is a lot of people join bands and are surprised at the amount of work that's involved. Everything that surrounds a band. It's not just, hey, I show up to the show, I play a little bit, I unplug, and I leave. I see this countless times when we're playing out. There's that one member that shows up 3 minutes before they're supposed to go on, plugs in, does their thing, and then they're gone. Now, I understand that may be a situation. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's family. Maybe it was just that day. But I've been with bands that's common.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because it's not, they're just filling in their time. They're doing whatever. Yep. And you're always going to have that. Listen, you're always going to have your Ace Frehley's, the guy that doesn't want to carry his own equipment, right? I find that to be BS. But I've been in that situation as well. So it's like, sometimes it's better to just do the work because, again, you're trying to stay in the flow. But to let somebody go, it's hard. I have found that, like with our experience, we were doing whatever we could to make it work, to keep the flow going. Personality-wise, we were struggling. I talked about that in one of the previous shows. And we kept curtailing things. Okay, listen, we'll do this instead of this. We'll do this. Don't do that part. Do this. Do this. We'll take care of, whatever. But after a while, if you're not getting it in return from that particular member, it's time to let them go. Over the years, like there's been some people that we go, listen, we're going to let go after this point. We'll give them one more shot, and we're going to let them go. But they gave themselves enough rope that they left before. Because of the experiences over the years, we now know when to cut ties much quicker. We actually had a singer come in, worked with them. We sent them a lot of tracks. They had a studio at their location, so they were recording, sending tracks back of the basic set, and it sounded great. They were working through some stuff. They came, they were prepared, but the attitude, they were a great singer. Attitude just was, you guys can't be wasting my time. Like, what? And it was this, that, and the other thing. It wasn't even a month in, and we were planning a big tour with this individual. We fired him. They fired back at us like, first of all, you don't even know us well enough to even talk to us in this tone, because we're not talking to you in any way like this. What gives you the, And we let them go, and they were like, oh, I can't believe this. I knew this was going to, well, if you knew it, then what the hell did you join the band for?
Yeah.
Some people are just tough to work with. And I have found, and we've talked about this, that if they're a team player, they don't have to be that great. if they're willing to work and do what, because they'll get great.
Yeah.
But if they're great, or they think they're great, and they're a one-trick pony, and you can't get them, like I said, John Lennon, when someone said, what do you feel about Pete Best? He said, Pete Best was a great drummer. Ringo Starr's a great Beatle.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different ways of looking at that. They could say that he was better, maybe not in the get-go, but as time went on, but he was a team player. He did whatever he had to do for the Beatles to make them what they were. And to me, that goes a long way further than talent alone.
Yeah, I was my former band. The attitude was always, you go to war with the soldiers you got, right? And come to find out later that he didn't believe in that, that term that he made up himself. But like, it literally is.
Buy the shirt, buddy. Buy the shirt.
I literally, I believe in that now, because now that I'm out of that situation and the way that situation was handled, because it was all done over ego, I see things differently now with starting my own project, from the bottom up. Now we had it'll probably be out by the time this airs, or maybe it won't be, but whatever, it doesn't matter. We just went through a situation recently where we had to let someone go, and it wasn't because the person was a bad person, because he really wasn't. He was a super, super sweet guy and a really great player, but he wasn't a Beatle. Let's just put it that way. Like, we gave him many chances, and this is how I do it, or this is how we did it, I should say. And hopefully this will, I'm hoping that this is one of those things and one of those shows that people listen to and kind of really take our advice, because letting someone go, like Mick had said, it's not easy. We were sick about it. We had planned it for a couple days, and we really were bummed about it, and we were really sick over it, because you never want to hurt someone's feelings, right? Like, let's just take Guy being a bad person out of the mix. Like, let's just completely throw that out, because if the person's a bad person and you fire him, then no harm, no foul, no big deal. But when the person is just not a good fit for whatever reason, and you have to let them go when you genuinely enjoy that person's company, or they've become sort of a friend, or whatever it may be, it's hard. It's really not easy. It's not an easy thing, especially because you never want to hurt somebody's feelings, and you never want to bum anybody out. But we did the right thing, and I say that in terms of myself and other band members had many, many, many conversations about this individual and the issues that we were having. Again, not personal issues. It was more of the musical issues. And we talked about it over and over and over again. We just talked everything through. That way, at the end of the day, when we finally had to let this person go, we knew in our heart of hearts that we did everything we could do. We've given that person many chances. We actually sat down with this person and said, hey, listen, this is how we feel. This is what we think you need to do. And if you don't feel that way, then that's totally okay. Then we're just going to go another way. And that person at that time was like, no, I totally understand. I'm going to do what needs to be done. And we were like, okay, that's great. We gave it some time. It wasn't working out. And come to find out that the day that we let this person go, I come to find out that, because I had said to this individual, I had said, tell me how you feel. Like, what are you feeling? Because I'm huge on communication. I really am. And we had exhausted this conversation. And this individual said, he didn't say he was relieved, but he said he wasn't having fun anymore. And that really hit home to me, because I never want an individual come to rehearsal and not have fun, right? He wasn't having fun on a personal level. We were definitely having fun on a personal level, because he was a character. He wasn't having fun on a playing level. And that's only because we were on two different fields. Mm-hmm. He wanted to come in and do his thing, and we were being a little more business savvy, a little more, I don't want to say serious, because that's not, it sounds like when I say serious, it sounds like I'm taking a shot, and it's not a shot. But we were thinking of being a band one way, and he was thinking of being in a band another way. And when we had this conversation with this individual, I think it's when he realized that this wasn't what he, like you had said, Mick, you don't realize the kind of work that needs to be put in to get to spot A. You think you can come in and just kind of do whatever, and then once you're involved, you're like, oh man, I didn't realize it was so much work to get to that spot. And it is, because being in a band is not easy. He said he wasn't having fun anymore, and we realized that once we sat down and had that conversation with him that, this is what we feel like we need you to do to be where we need you to be, I think that gave him a lot of pressure and a lot of stresses because it's not the way he worked. He didn't work the way we worked. Totally okay. It happens. He's a human being and we all see things differently sometimes. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we're not on the same page and that is completely okay. And because we had that conversation and because we were honest the entire time, when we left that night in rehearsal, we all hugged. We all said we love each other. He still wants to be friends. Like he still wants to be friends on Facebook. And, because we have a group message, we're always sending jokes to each other. And even to this day, like he's still doing it. We didn't lose any of that because we gave him the respect that he deserved to do what he needed to do. And when it didn't work out, we said, okay, like we can't go on any further. Now that conversation was extremely hard. But at the end of it, he was like, cool. Like when we told him that we were going to move on without him, he was like, okay, I totally get it. Cracked a beer, sat down. I think we chatted for like an hour, like just shooting shop, just talking music and having a bunch of laughs. And then he packed up and we helped him unload and we left. Because I think if you give that person that respect and that kind of thinking, when you take that person's feelings into consideration, I think it doesn't make it makes it harder actually. But at the end of the day, we could all look in the mirror and go, we gave it our best shot, and that's okay that it didn't work out. I'll give you another example if you don't mind, Mick. So pretty recently, I was in a band with a bunch of guys, a bunch of really super talented musicians that I'd always wanted to work with in the metal community. They all have names in their own bands, and I'd been with them a few months, learning the stuff, and it wasn't going to be a big thing. We're just going to do some local shows and record. And I told them going in, by the first time I was at rehearsal, because they came to me, they really wanted me to be in the band, and which I was completely honored and flattered. And I said to them, as soon as I walked through the door, because I'd known all these guys for so long, I said, if this doesn't work out, I just need you to tell me. Just be honest, and it's totally cool. No big deal. Or it was a big deal, but like, it's all good. I'm totally fine with it as long as I know and you're honest with me. And it went on for a bunch of months, and we had some great songs. And then I got a call one day, and they were like, listen, we're going to go another way. And he felt really bad, and he was like, I can't. It's so hard for me to make this call because we love you as a person, yada, yada, yada. And I get it. And I said to him, I said, hey, man, listen, it's okay. Like, it's okay. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. I don't have any hard feelings to these guys. I still talk to them every day. I was asking about the new singer the other day, and I sent them a group text message when I got off the phone. I said, hey, man, I'm really sorry about this. This stinks, but I love you. It's all good. We're all friends. I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And everybody was super, I feel like they were kind of shocked because I guess they expected me to be a little butthurt, and I wasn't. I wasn't. I mean, it stung. I was a little bummed because I had put, some work into doing these songs with these guys. And I love these guys. I respected these guys, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with your talent. Sometimes it just doesn't fit. It doesn't mesh. It's not what a person's looking for. It happens. And, it means a lot when you handle it, when you give those people those chances, because at the end of the day, you can say, I did all that I can to help this person through. And if it doesn't work out, then we did everything we could, and then everybody can walk away. Now that person may still be butthurt. They still be mad, but that's on them, because at the end of the day, you can look at yourself and go, we did what we could. Because like I said, when we got rid of one of our guys pretty recently, we had many, many, many conversations, myself and the other band members, about how we were going to do this, and we needed a backup plan, and we got a backup plan in place. So it was an easy transition. But it doesn't make it any easy to lose that person, or to tell that person it doesn't work. But to me, when you're going to fire someone, you have to have respect for that other person. No matter how it ends up, you have to have respect. Again, unless that person's a total a-hole, then that's completely different. But if that person is not, and it's just not working, I'm a total big believer in giving that person enough time to figure out what the issue is, and then confront that person, and then either figure it out from that conversation, or give them that time and see what happens, and then make that change.
You are listening to the Cosmic Voice with your hosts Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
from our experience, we tried to curtail as much as we could or change to kind of make it work, right? To keep the flow going, to give them the opportunity. It's not that they weren't talented. It's just that, maybe they weren't gelling right, or they weren't taking the time, or this, that, and the other thing. As you were saying, your band had multiple conversations about this situation. I know I was there for months on end. The topic of conversation all the time was, what are we going to do with this member? As we're still trying to push through, we kept giving ourselves, okay, we'll do this instead of this and make this and that.
Right.
And so, we're making all these changes and jumping through these hoops, and you're not getting anything in return. Nothing is getting better. Or it would be good for one day, and then everything would go, south the next day and following. So for someone to come in and their response, in my opinion, to say, well, look, I'm not having fun anymore. Okay, well, first of all, if you've been doing it for 15 years, I could maybe see that, because a lot of times things will go up and down. Like, you kind of lose that zeal, and that's normal, that's human. And then it comes back, maybe. Some people struggle with it. But that becomes more of, this is what I've learned, that individual situation or issue than the band's. Because what that individual usually likes to do, again, from my experience, is put it back on the band. You're the reason we're not having the fun anymore or whatever. Well, listen, here's the thing. If you're a weekend warrior band, once a month, whatever the case may be, and little is being done in between, it's just a couple guys, hey, we get together, we rehearse once, we do the show. And then we'll, if we come across, we'll drink a lot of beers and all this kind of stuff. Well, then, okay, there's not a lot. But if it's a band, and in my opinion, if the band starts one way and continues to grow and everybody's growing at the same time, they're seeing this change. If they're not acknowledging it, that's their issue. And then all of a sudden, they have the issue because they're not having fun anymore, because now it's work. And that's the truth. It is work. Some bands, it's big money work.
Yeah.
Right? And other bands, it isn't. It's just a fly-by night. It's something I'm doing to make me feel good, or, hey, I'm living that fantasy for a day, but then I go back to my real life or whatever. Well, for some of us, the fantasy is the reality, and vice versa. As a band grows, and if the goal is, hey, listen, we want to do this, the expectation is things are going to get more involved. I'll give you an example here, like, say, with martial arts. A lot of people will start martial arts. And they get their nowadays, you can get your belt, like, whatever. They got, you get your belt. The first couple belts, oh, this is easy, you're feeling good. The thing is that most people they think it gets easier. It actually gets harder, because your level of a commitment has to go up. Your time in to hone your skill has to go up. Yeah. Your involvement in the art, in the culture, has to go up. Because what's happening is now it's integrating into your everyday life. Anything that we do, and I can say this to you because you've integrated music into your life. Mm-hmm. It's part of your persona, part of your being, part of your existence. Same here. I mean, oftentimes I joke about retiring. I know that someday it's going to happen. And I often sit and think, and sometimes stress, like, what am I going to do without it?
Yeah.
What am I going to do without? Yep. There's going to be that day, say Sunday's my last, and then Monday I start without it. It hasn't happened yet, but I can actually sense the loss. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with all this stuff? Right? I mean, like, because I've talked about this to some of my guys. It's like, okay, for some of them, that may be it. But if the music's going to live on, it really never stops for me, because I have to keep the digital up. I have to do this. I have to, the contracts that we have, and it still exists in some capacity. It just doesn't stop. Right? For a weekend warrior band that maybe has one or two originals and plays a bunch of covers, well, when it stops, it stops.
Yeah.
Right? But when you've pushed it past a certain point, and anybody that joins that band, any point along that timeline, should realize, if this is the band they're joining, well, this band's doing this, I have to be expected of myself to do this. Otherwise, So sometimes the firing or the letting go could have been avoided from the very beginning. But oftentimes, like I said, and I've been guilty of this as well, to keep that flow going, I think when that flow stops with the band, that is the worst possible thing that could happen.
Yeah,
because
it is.
Yeah,
It is.
I mean, rejection's nothing. You can get up over it, agitate you. You feel butthurt for a while. Maybe you're bummed out. You're dragging your heels. That goes away. But that flow is so hard. When you're in the flow, it's like the train hitting the wall. Man, to get that train to start again. Now, you may be looking at a new train. If it's not working and it's causing a negative thing, you got to let that person go. But I've also found that over time, that person usually will give themselves enough rope to hang themselves. In the meantime, behind the scenes, you got to do what you got to do. Maybe that means start to interview other people. I'd recommend it. This isn't always the case, but like in corporate world, they tell you don't leave your one job till you have another job lined up. Well, sometimes that may not be possible. If it's tearing you up inside mentally, physically, spiritually, grammatically, that every day 100%. That alarm goes off and you're going ballistic, don't go, hey, listen, in the top 15%, now all of a sudden they're telling us how we should live our lives and the jobs that we take or not take. I'm not telling you that. I'm leaving that to Joe Rogan. He's got more listeners. Spotify paid him a lot of money to tell people what to do. But it's a case-by-case basis. It has to be a personal decision that sometimes, listen, I need to make a change. And if that means that I go silent, I go dark for a little bit, then that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
I've been there. You lose a member, you get another one in, and you're scrambling to keep the ball rolling, and you're doing shows. I'm not against that. Hey, listen, not every show's perfect. And I've said this before. Most of the time, the audience doesn't know the difference unless there's a complete and utter shutdown.
Yeah.
Okay?
Correct. Yep.
But if you have someone who's relatively competent and we're pushing through and there's communication going on stage, I'm a firm believer of communication. You can't leave people out to dry. Then you can get through things. If it's a every man for himself situation and things are happening, well, that's something you need to assess. And that may be, if you're firing people a lot and letting people go, and believe me, I know this from experience, your hiring skills may not be the best. So you may need to take a couple steps back and view, how am I hiring these people? Am I, giving them every opportunity to give me the information that I need to make an educated decision based on my needs? Or am I just like stressing out here and I'm just trying to fill a gap?
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been there and I've done that because you start to panic. Oh my God, I'm going to lose everything that I worked hard for if I don't do this. And listen, maybe that's the case. Maybe it's really not. And having that opportunity to get things back to where they should be, or at least to a point where it's workable and it's going to continue to move forward and skyrocket, onward and upward type of thing, then maybe that's the time that you need to give. Now, listen, when I moved to the new drummer, I knew it was the right thing to do. It was probably the best decision I've ever made musically because the energy that was brought to the band was stellar, and from that point forward I felt that the band really became alive, and that's kind of where we really started. Everything else was kind of like a precursor to get things rolling because the black cloud was lifted and a lot happened since then where and I've had some bad times in that time too, but we've had more of a team. And what I do know that when you get a new member in, the rest of the band, if everybody's in sync, they're on the same page. They get a heightened sense of ability. They get a heightened sense of what we're 100%. Supposed to be doing. They're like laser focused on their playing because they gotta look good. They gotta because if we're gonna have this person work out, we can't be lackadaisical about our play. And that happens. Sometimes rehearsals are just like we're just kind of moving through the thing because we've been through this 1,000+ times. But when you get that new person in the mix, you're putting on the good show, you're making everything as positive, and sometimes it's that energy that puts you back into the game. Right? Halford has talked about Richie coming on board. He re-inspired the band to record an album, to record another album, to tour, to keep going. So that's not uncommon. There's been a lot of bands that have talked about that over the years because after a while it becomes old hat to everybody. And I get that, okay? And it's not that you want to, but you get that one new guy in, and all of a sudden, that's why a lot of those veteran bands, they'll bring in a younger guy, and sometimes that younger guy becomes the guy that's the point person. It's keeping all these old heads. They're the name, they're the whatever. But this is the guy with the motivation.
Yeah, we need someone in touch with the kids.
That's right. You need someone to get in touch with the kids. So I'm telling you that this, I know it. Because I've talked about it. Like, okay, if we have to replace anybody at this point, including myself, we're going with younger, taller, better looking, better all around. It's a tough situation, and I feel for any band that's in it. Like I said, I've been in it more times than I wanted to. And sometimes you're surprised, like, oh my God, I'm here again. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what am I doing wrong? Sometimes it could be you, and sometimes it's not you. You know what I mean? You got to find the thing. I have found that if the band has a path it's following, there may not be any stopping or changing that. The only thing that's going to stop or change is the band disbands altogether.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But there's something to say about that. If that band is going a certain way and you're seeing improvement, you're seeing build each time, well, then you're on the right path, and you just have to find the right people. And not everybody's going to be the right people. You've said it. We've talked about it in other episodes. You've seen it with major bands that you love. There's very few bands that the membership is exactly the same. And it may be the same now, but 10 years ago it wasn't, because there's bands that got members that go in and out. Members that go in and out. They come back, they have to mature, they have a problem, they, blah, blah, blah. And again, like we used Kiss early on as an example in this episode. Look at them. Yeah. They've had a lot of members. And again, you could say that for whatever, that's been this, it's been that. It doesn't matter. But the machine of Kiss still rolled on. The band as Kiss, not the band as the members, the band as Kiss, must be doing something right, because they've been able to weather a lot of different storms.
Yeah.
Members.
With a lot of different members.
A lot of different members that's changed the industry, the change within the band. But that's what I'm saying. If you have something that's actually still viable, then you just got to find the right click. Paul Stanley has talked about this group in terms of how they get along personally, as well as professionally, has surpassed anything that's happened in the past. Yeah. Say what you want, ego and this and that, they're money grabbers, or, they take advantage of it, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But if someone's talking about that personally, that in itself could be more important than anything. We've talked about this in one of these episodes this season. I want to work with people that I connect with on some level. Especially doing it this way. If I got to go to a 9 to 5 and I'm being paid, it's not part of my job description to like the people I'm working with, or my boss, or even the company or the job. Right. Would it help? Yes. But that's not the goal, right? Yeah. For some bands, it may not be the goal either. But in my situation, how I want to do things, like I said, I'm at a stage, I'm at an age, I've been through it enough. I want things a certain way, and if I don't get them, then I'm going to move on. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to change it until I get it. I deserve that. Maybe some people don't want that, but I have to be able to connect with somebody. If I'm writing with you, if I'm giving you stuff from my soul, from my spirit that I create, and you're going to do the same, there has to be some type of connection. We have to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. That doesn't mean that we have to agree. That doesn't mean that we have to be hunky-dory all the time. But if I respect you and I'm connected with you, and I know that you got my back even though you're bitching at me, and I got yours even though I'm probably bitching at you, then I'm okay with that. But if it's
trust, right?
Yeah, it's got to be that trust. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Good luck to you guys out there if you got to deal with it. It's a bad situation. But as Chris said, it may be a good situation. And I have been in situations where it seemed bad, but that silver lining on the other side was like other doors opened. You're never going to know if you don't push forward and keep going on. You'll never know if that door ever opened.
And it could be a silver lining for the other person too.
That's right.
They may not have the heart to quit, and you gave them an out. That could be good for them.
That's right. How many major bands have let go of members, and they may have hit rock bottom, and then they cleaned themselves up. They found a new spice to life, and they've talked about it, and then they were able to help other people and go on to greater things. So you never know. I mean, maybe we're sugarcoating it to make it easier for us, because we can do that as humans. Listen, you tell yourself the lie enough, you believe it. What do you got, buddy? You got anything else you want to add to this?
No, brother. Nope. Not at all, man. Not at all.
All right, if you like that, check out some of our other episodes and seasons to keep it in the 15% at www.thecosmicvoice.com. Step into the Cosmic Verse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmic Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmicvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmic Voice. You can find The Cosmic Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmic Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.